And just like that, Nashville, just like that, man, just like that, we're back. We're back, man. Good morning to you guys again. Good morning. We are here, Nashville. Black Man Vent 2. Glad to have you guys again, man, on another Monday morning, Nashville. Have you heard of Black Man Vent today? Still going through our election education season, Nashville, and we're excited. As you've heard our episodes here previous with John Manson, with Joseph P. Day, and just many of the uh, black leaders that are going into our ballots, man. Make sure you guys vote, Nashville. If we haven't said it before, in large emphasis, we're saying it now, Nashville. Vote, vote, vote. Make sure you guys vote. Pops.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to the fact that it's a historical election because there were so many young black males and just young black people in general on the ballot this year. Not only young black males, but black sisters. Man, we went to this event. I keep thinking about it, man, at the weekend, man, and a couple of them came out and they gave us what their campaign was going to be about, man, and it was all good. And we really got introduced and informed about what was going on, man. But most of all, I just like the fact that it's a historical event and the fact that we're being a part of it, man, on the Black Man event too, by bringing some of these people on, man, and trying to help push their campaign. And when they get in, man, it's going to be a grand occasion. So I'm just glad to be a part of this historical occasion.
Nashville again, the body mass index of election education with our special guest, man. Nashville, check this out. Make sure you listen in. We're going to read about this good brother here on Black Man Vent 2 this Monday morning. Our guest this morning, Nashville, is running for the Criminal Court Judge Division 6. Criminal Court Judge Division 6. Nashville native. He attended Meigs, Hume Fogg, and then finished at the Southwest DeKalb High School in Decatur, Georgia. Mr. Marcus went back to his old neighborhood to teach government and Spanish at East Nashville Magna High School, my alma mater, out east for life, man. While coaching the boys' track team. He graduated summa cum laude with his bachelor's degree in political science with a minor in psychology. He attended the Tennessee State University,
Big Blue, baby.
earning a presidential scholarship, partial athletic scholarship as well after walking onto the TSU football team. Marcus also founded Shute Law, a general practice law firm in Nashville, Tennessee that handles a wide range of cases from criminal defense, contract disputes, landlord-tenant matters, intellectual property rights, estate planning, and probate matters. Nashville, we got a great episode for you guys today. Marcus is also married. He has his wife, Natalie, and has 2 daughters and a chocolate lab. Without further ado, I got to mention this part because I love my Greek community. He is also a member of the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. So I got to make sure I show some love. Show some love to that. Without further ado, Nashville, presenting to some, introducing to others. My guy, again, running for Criminal Court Judge Division 6, Marcus Shute Jr. Boss man, how you doing this morning?
Man, I'm doing wonderful. I really appreciate the opportunity for you all allowing me to come on your platform. I think it's important to give this perspective of what's going on, and I really appreciate the enthusiasm behind it. You know, it's refreshing to see people wanting to be engaged in what's going on in our community. So
yes, sir.
I definitely am excited to be here and looking forward to talking with y'all.
Yeah, man. We're excited to have you, Marcus, man, again. Just thank you for taking your time out of your busy day, man. We are in the early election season right now. Nashville voting, the election is May the 3rd.
May the 3rd is the election. Early voting has been going on. It started on April the 13th and will end April the 28th. Then the primary election will be May the 3rd.
May the 3rd, Nashville. Make sure y'all go out and vote. Vote, Nashville. You don't have no excuse. We done talked about for the whole month election education. You've learned about these different divisions. You've learned about these different positions. You can't go to the ballot now and just vote for somebody because they black. So now that you know these positions, Nashville, make sure you guys go vote. Nashville, again, have you heard a Black Man Vent today? Mr. Marcus, man, let's go ahead and open up, man, with a quick icebreaker. Just break down to us the Criminal Court Judge Division 6 position, if you will, and tell us about the other divisions as well, because I'm sure 6 ain't the only one. I know it's a couple of numbers before 6 and a couple of numbers after. So educate Nashville, man, on this election education season about that.
All right, so one thing to keep in mind is that there are 30 judicial seats that are up for election.
Wow.
There are 11 general sessions judges, and if you think about stairs, your general sessions court will be the lowest stair. It's what we call the entryway to the courthouse.
Okay.
General sessions courts do just that, general cases. So they deal with civil and they deal with criminal aspects. Civil cases up to $25,000, and then criminal cases, if the punishment for the offense is under 1 year, which is a misdemeanor, then they can resolve those cases.
Okay.
If the case is a felony or above, then it has to go to a criminal court case. If the civil matter, so civil meaning contract dispute when you're having an issue with the person, right? Or a contract dispute, landlord-tenant issue, those cases, once the amount goes over $25,000, then you have to take it to a specific court. Or sometimes, like medical malpractice, you have to have in a different court. And so it's not a general sessions court. Those courts are circuit or chancery courts.
Okay.
I believe there are a total of 12 of those. And then you got the 11 general sessions. And then 6 criminal courts. So there are 6 divisions for criminal court. The divisions and the numbers for the court system don't have anything to do with where people live in Davidson County.
Gotcha.
It has everything to do with case management. So the First Circuit Court, here's a specific set of civil cases. The Second Circuit, here's a specific set of cases, and so on. When you go to criminal court, the difference is that it doesn't matter what type of crime has occurred. It depends on when the crime occurred. So if it occurred during a particular week, then it goes to one of the divisions of the court. So what attorneys think of the divisions are, we talk about it as for case management purposes. So that way one court doesn't have 50 cases and one court has 5,000 cases. That's balanced across the board, and it doesn't seem like somebody's cherry picking a specific judge.
Right.
So criminal court is a trial court, and it handles any case. It can handle from a misdemeanor all the way up to felony murder or first degree murder, which is the highest offense that we have. That court can also sentence somebody to death in Tennessee, and then also can sentence somebody to life in prison. One thing I always talk about when I talk about sentencing is that Tennessee has one of the highest life sentences in the country. Some states have 26 years as a life sentence. In Tennessee, ours is 51. And so if you think about if somebody's been convicted of a crime where the sentencing was a life sentence, that's minimum 51 years that they would be spending in custody incarceration. And we can talk about later about what type of resources or what type of services one may receive when they're incarcerated. But that's just something to think about. And so when we look at criminal court, right, we think we have to look at how does one wind up in criminal court, where there must have been some type of criminal offense that occurred. The police officers arrested somebody for that. And then you can look at things like policing itself, right? Who, you find, I remember when I used to work at Walmart, I had a manager tell me, you inspect what you expect. Like if you expect there's something to be something, you're going to inspect it quite frequently. And so when you have something that's under a certain microscope, you're always going to see things there a lot more than when you're not looking at a certain area with the microscope. And so, when you look at the people that come in front of criminal courts, most of those people are black men or black women.
Come on, man.
And so it's important that we have somebody that's on the bench that has the cultural competency to really understand what's going on in our community. To say, are there other things and other resources or alternative sentences that we can provide for somebody instead of just locking them up in a cage? I definitely think that, sometimes there's an appropriate place for certain types of crimes. We don't want violent people killing people, on our streets, but then we also need to take a look at what issues may have caused that, what trauma could have happened to their life. Have they ever had any therapy? Like that? So I know I kind of left what criminal court does, but that's all a part of, when you look at the criminal justice system, criminal court judge, they have a lot of discretion in cases and sentencing, with the exception of a few cases that have statutory minimum sentences and requirements. But for some of the other ones, you have some discretion. The other thing to look at is when you enter the criminal justice system, for attorneys and the people that deal with the court system, it's normal for us. And not normal as in we accept it as normal, but we're familiar with it. And so because of that, sometimes people that are having their first encounter with the criminal justice system may not understand a lot of the moving pieces. And it's because people just presume that you should know because they're dealing with it every day. And I think that it's important to make sure people understand what rights did they have? What the extent of their rights? How can they do certain things? And then the other side of it is when people are on probation, You know, what resources and tools are we giving them to make them be successful?
Right.
I have clients that have served time that have consecutive sentences. So you can have a concurrent sentence or a consecutive. On the streets, they call them stacked, right? So if you get a sentence and you got 3 charges, let's say those 3 charges, your plea may be a year for 2 and 2.5 for the other. Concurrent means that they all run together. So the longest sentence is the longest is that you're going to serve.
Okay.
If they're stacked, which can happen depending on some type of charges that you have, you use a gun in a certain situation, then that means that it's consecutive. So once you finish the 1 year, then the next year starts. And then once you finish that year, then 2.5 years starts. So looking at how people can be on probation for a long time because of the original sentence that they have, we want to make sure that they're successful when they're on probation. You know, do they have a state ID? In some states, they make people that have been in custody get their ID before they leave, and then when they re-enter in the community. You know, for us in this room, we have our driver's license, you know, so we don't have a problem applying for a job or applying for housing. You know, if we look at, and my wife corrected me earlier because I was saying the wrong psychologist's name about the hierarchy of needs. I was thinking about Pavlov's experiment, but it's I think it's Maslow. Yeah, with the dog, but it's Maslow. The hierarchy of needs. When we talk about our basic needs being met and how people operate. Like if you woke up before we started this, you prayed and you talked about woke up in our right mind. So we woke up and I presume you were in your house.
Yes.
Right? You were secure in your own bed.
Yes, sir.
And you had some goal that you were going to do this morning. You knew you were going to go to work. You were going to go do something. You knew you were going to see your family. Well, if we take the flip side of that for somebody just re-entering our society, if they don't have a job or they don't know where they're going to wake up, they don't know where their next meal is coming from, then it's difficult to have the expectation that they're going to be able to operate like you and I, right? We don't have the same playing field. And so for me, it's important that there's a focus on when people are re-entering our community. We've said, hey, you've done your time. You've been accountable for your actions. Now let's move you forward.
Let's help this brother, man.
Those are the things that I think is so important that we have those things that give people their IDs, you know, give them good paying jobs. You know, I learned that the Music City Community Careers Program, which is a funded program, will train people to be a pipe fitter, HVAC, electrician, plumber, concrete worker, or fireman for free. Doesn't matter if you're a felon. And they will also, once you're done with your training, connect you with contracted jobs so that you can earn a good living. Right? And so when we talk about those needs, now you got a resource taken care of, right? You know you're going to earn. So now you know you're going to be able to eat. You may be able to start budgeting and figure out, I can get me a place now. And then that takes me to my other thing. We talk about people that are classified as felons. There's a stigma attached to it. A lot of places that rent don't want felons on their property. And so now we're limiting where people can stay. So you're already telling them they're less than because they have this name about them. They're felons. But then you're making them feel second class by saying you can't stay here because you committed a crime and you've been accountable for it and you're out now, but I'm still gonna hold that against you. You know, so those are things that I think that are important for people to be educated and knowledgeable about, that while I can't change their status as a felon, I can try to alleviate some of the issues that they have by working with nonprofits that do transitional housing. By working with those programs that get people those good paying jobs. One thing that I'm really that has been on my mind since I've been campaigning, Pivot Technology School that was founded by Josh Mundy and Quan Clark just got opportunity to have their education program put inside of a state penitentiary in Georgia. So when you talk about the opportunity to kind of close some gaps and issues and resources, if we're able to get that kind of program in Davidson County, the school is founded here and they're teaching coding, then you're really helping someone say, I'm giving you quality training that you can apply when you leave here. Not just you can read the alphabet, you can write your name and get a GED and count and do the basic math things, but we're really going to give you a skill where you can be successful. So those are some of the things
like
that
a target area, man.
To say, hey, look, we know that coding, we know that computer science is the future. Everything is going to algorithms and computers. You know, let's give people the opportunity to be successful and give them that type of training and education. So those are some of the things that I want to do. And that's why I'm running for judges. I know, like I said, that kind of went way over.
I love that
spiel, man. I love that spiel because I was just while you was talking, man, I was thinking about when I came to Tennessee State, man. I came to do criminal justice. And I wanted to get into probation and parole. My thing was I wanted to be avenue, man, for guys that's on probation and parole, man, to give them a positive outlook. That was my whole gist, man. And so the reason I did that though is because I come from Georgia, man. So I'm from Georgia. So when you said, I'm like, wow, this dude, here we go. But from Georgia, man. So I used to get in a lot of trouble, man. I'm gonna be real about it. And so my thing was, I didn't know the laws, didn't know the system, all that. I said, man, when I go to college, man, I'm gonna learn them laws, man. So I'm gonna be a criminal justice major. So that was my major, man. Long story short, man. My hope, when I got ready to graduate, my last like paper, the thing you had to do, to graduate, was on recidivism rate, man. And that's what I was thinking about. You're gonna kill those numbers, man, if you're able to implement all the stuff that you just said, or even some of the stuff that you just said. Right. Stop some of these brothers, man, from going in and out this system, man, making CCA and all these other places that you can invest in, making them rich, man, off of us, man. So, man, what you just said, man, is big for our community, man, and it's big for people that are looking at this podcast and listening to this podcast and know that if you go vote for this young man, you got a chance if your people get caught up, they got a chance of getting out, man. So I appreciate you even going through that spiel, man. That was real. So let me ask you this. So with all that you just said, what are some of the things that you just said that you're saying that's not being done right now? Like not being offered. You know what I'm saying? Because you were saying you're going to offer these things and try to do some of these things. So what's the side of that that's not happening right now?
So a lot of things are kind of changing right now because Nashville fired CCA essentially, and now the city's taking over with inmates.
That's good.
It's good and bad, right? So I definitely, I think it's appropriate that the for-profit model shouldn't be applied for people that these are humans, right?
Exactly.
I'm gonna get to because something just kind of dropped in. I need to make sure I say this and not forget. So I get back to CCA and the housing, but when I was in school, I read a study that talked about people that come from being I call them formerly incarcerated citizens, right? Because where you are in your life is not who you are in your life, right? And I think that sometimes because of our media and stigmatism, when people go to jail, then they get classified as they're always going to be this type of person.
Yes.
But one thing that the study talked about, I told you my minor was psychology. One thing that they talked about is that there's a similarity between homeless persons and persons that are felons or formerly incarcerated. And what it is that once they identify, who they are, it's a shame factor because people won't look them in the eye. And it's the same type of thing that they would do to homeless people. And what that does is that you take somebody's dignity from them, their humanity from them, by not acknowledging them as a person.
Wow. By not looking them in the eye.
And you think about, when you were growing up, I'm certain that a man in your life told you look him in the eye.
Yeah. Exactly. Firm handshake. Look him in the eye. Yeah,
right?
Man. Yes, sir.
And so if you understanding that now take the converse of it, right? You're going through something, you're in between homes, right? Something occurred in your life where you don't have a house now.
Right.
And you have to go on the street to ask people for money.
Exactly.
You got to ask, I need some help.
Yeah.
And people won't even look you in your eye. So can you imagine if you're coming out of prison?
Yeah.
I don't have an ID.
Yeah.
Can you help me?
Yeah.
I got to go to this government building. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And you say, well, I just got out of jail. Immediately, nobody looking them in their eye.
Yeah.
So
and so for me, it's about seeing the humanity and the dignity in the people. And so back to the CCA Metro thing, the good and the bad. The part of it is that CCA did have a system for their programs, and Metro has to catch up with that now, right? Since we're changing of the guard, there are opportunities for different educational programs that are not available anymore. And it's a staffing. It's not that the city doesn't want to; they don't have the bodies to do it.
Yes.
And there are also other issues with even state time, TDOC, Tennessee Department of Corrections, where there used to be programs that were in the jails, but they're no longer there. And then the certain programs that are available are only available post-conviction. So if you happen to be there pre-trial, which nobody would be in TDOC pre-trial, but they'll be in Davidson County. But pre-trial, so if you happen to have a charge where your bond is high and you can't afford, and we can talk about bond, where you can't afford to get out, you're sitting in jail pre-trial. You can't get pre-trial release.
Right.
And so when you're sitting, and that can be a long time depending on what your charges are.
Yes.
The only programs that are available are education, GED type programs. They don't have an anger management program. Or you need some mental health treatment. They don't have that. And the reason being is because they don't know if you're going to bond out, right? or if your case is going to settle.
Right.
So there's not and it's not an incentive for the city to offer those at this point, because the idea is if you're on pretrial, we like for you to be out, right? Not be in.
Yes.
But again, when you talk about people that have been convicted or pled guilty to their crimes, if depending on how much time they have left, depends on whether or not they'll get into certain programs. So there are some times where, like, I had a client that had a little bit more time than somebody else did, and they got bumped out of the class because the other person was up for parole before them. And so then it's like, well, what does this individual do now that they were trying to do something better for themselves? And instead it's like, well, you got to wait because, you know. So those are the things that I think that, now I obviously don't have any controls over the jails, but what I can do is have conversations with stakeholders. And I think that that's the biggest thing that I'd be able to do, is to use my voice. Like you all talk about, you all create this podcast for those that don't have a voice. It's the same thing that we have the opportunity to do with May 3rd with this election. You want to voice in what's going on in criminal justice. You want to voice what's going on in your community. You have to vote for the people that understand and how to make that change. So that's why I said it's so refreshing to have somebody, some people that are enthusiastic about getting this education message out. You know, on the first day of voting, there were 234 people that voted in the whole county.
Wow.
Hold on, back up, man.
234.
Wow. And if you got this stat, how many people is in this county estimated?
There's over 500,000 people. There's 480,000 registered voters. There's 0.05%.
Look, you didn't say 2,000. He said 234.
And we'll get an update tomorrow morning to see what that number looks like compared to today. Now, and again, and this is the thing where, again, so it's, you know, I was a government teacher. I'm a political science major. So when you look at our early voting rules, they can't have early voting no earlier than a certain date, and then it has to be it has to end 5 days before the actual election. So it gives you like a window of how much time that you can do this early voting. In Davidson County, they do the first few days of the first week at Howard School only. Now, have y'all driven around Davidson County?
Say trying to get to Howard School.
I was gonna say, have y'all have you been to the out there in Jolton, off Ashland City, Old Hickory, Hermitage, Antioch, you know what I mean, West Nashville, Bellevue, where you out there? I feel like you're in Dixon, but you're still in Davidson County, right?
Exactly.
So this is a huge county, like just land wise, not just people, but just land wise. And so the first week, you know, you don't expect a lot of people to come out because, I mean, if you're not downtown, like I was talking to a lady earlier today that lives in Jolton. She was like, "No, you know, Marcus, I appreciate you giving me a call. I'm not gonna early vote though." And it's like, okay, I respect that. I understand that. Because I'm thinking again, Jolton is past Whites Creek. If you go Whites Creek way, it's up the little mountain hill, the top of the hill, right? And then think about somebody trying to drive from Jolton to Nashville just to vote. And again, so that's the other part of it, is where it's about convenience. And so the early voting locations on April the 20th will open up for, you know, more areas, the top 10, the top 10 areas. And then on
hopefully
election day, but on election day, we have 162 polling locations. So it's, you know, it's a lot of places you can go vote on election day. You know, we would like, it would be better, in my opinion, if they had more of those open earlier, or even open up all 10 to begin with. You know, but, you know, we're this is what we got. So now that we know what we have, it's about letting people know, hey, if you can make it down to Howard School, come on down to Howard School. If you can make it to your early poll, get to your early poll. You know, we don't want it to be you got to wait the day of the election. Now you got to go to your specific center. Just going to knock it out while you can. You know?
And see, what I like too, man, is that y'all are giving everybody a decent option. You know, so to where it should be no excuse why you don't go vote, and then you wait to May the 3rd and wait in these Air Jordan release lines, you know, to be super long. Well, you know what I'm saying? Like,
hey, you know his line don't let me down. We can make it to Jacobson to the dealerships, but we can't make it to the ballots to choose leadership.
Come on. That's by Kanye
himself.
That's by Kanye himself. Yeah, man, and it's real. It's real, man, and it's one thing as a podcast. The reason why me and my dad again did this season is because my generation. I'm 26 years old, man. When I go to that ballot, and ever since I've been 18, old enough to vote, I'm looking for the Johnsons, the anything that speaks black. I'm like, I seen his sign, I seen his name. He black. Let's do that. I seen her. I seen her commercial. That's cool. She black. we got to get out of that.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest reason why we wanted to do this election education season, so we can get guys like you, guys like John Manson, guys like Joseph P. Day, to really break down what goes on in these elections, man. And if you want to touch on it real quick, man, touch on the fact that this is the most historical election for Nashville, for our people. How does it feel for you, man, to just be a part of this type of era right now?
I hadn't really thought about my role in it, to be honest with you. Again, I don't really look at myself as trying to do, or, I just try to do the work, because if you start getting focused on how people classify or codify something and talk about and categorize it, then you may get caught up in the message and not understand the message.
That's true.
And be, I'm somebody that, like, I definitely see, I mean, it's going to continue to be, unfortunately, that's the history of America. Every time we move forward, it's going to be historic.
True. That's true.
If you think about where we come from, and, the history of Nashville, y'all being from Nashville, you from Nashville?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So being from Nashville, you understand and learn the history of civil rights.
Right.
And you understand that it wasn't, so if it's 2020, 60 years ago, my grandmother's generation was sitting at the counters at Woolworth in the shake shop
exactly,
over there, Elliston, right?
Wow.
So it's not like it's so far removed.
Exactly.
From,
man.
Exactly.
To be, and so that's the thing for me is, I guess one of my football coach, Buck Godfrey, down in Southwest in Decatur, he always say, "Don't rest on your laurels, son." He was like, you did good today, but don't rest.
Exactly. Keep
working,
grinding, man.
Keep working. Like Coach said, job's not done.
Come on, man.
And that's the thing is that, because I went viral a few years ago for having locks and being an attorney, because it's not a lot of us in the profession.
Right.
I think I've seen a few guys that have followed me on Instagram that have since then become attorneys. And to my knowledge, prior to, I know that there's a appellate judge, Richard Dinkins. He had locks, and he was one of the first judges that had locks here in Tennessee. Looking at so in 2014, it was historic how many Black people were elected as officials in Davidson County.
Right.
I can get into it's a lot of history about Nashville and politics and Black folks trying to be involved and engaged. I mean, I can tell you about my grandmama that lost her house from Jefferson Street when the steering committee took it in the 60s.
Wow.
And they condemned it to eminent domain. That's why I-40 runs through Jefferson Street now.
Wow.
There was a whole community and homes and economic. People talk about the music, but there was so much economic development there because it was Black-owned business. That's the only place Black people could go.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So we're going to make the best of what we got wherever we are.
Exactly.
And now, as you look across the street from where we are, it's already getting revitalized in a different kind of way.
Crazy, man.
So true.
So looking at the history, I think in 2030 is going to be historic, right?
Yeah.
Because I think what we've done, I know for me, I'm 37, so you said you're 26. For me, it's awoken something, like the audacity of now, right? Like, why do I have to wait until somebody says, "Oh, you've done enough time for you"? Like, no, I feel the need now.
Exactly.
And so I think that's what's happened in Nashville. A lot of us are fed up with how things are. I'm fortunate to run in a court where the judge was fair before. He was a good judge. It wasn't like corruption or anything like that going on. But the idea of, I've heard some people in some other races make comments like, well, why don't they just wait till next election cycle? Well, next election cycle is 2030. My oldest daughter's going to be driving. Right now, she's 8 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And so the idea of letting my community not have a voice or have somebody that has the understanding of what's going on for 8 years, the recidivism, the crime, it's not going to stay the same. It's going to get worse. We know it's going to get worse.
So true.
And so I think that it's important to it's definitely historic, but I don't just want it to stop on you see the face. Like, what kind of work are we being able to put in? Like, what are we doing, now that we are, if we are to get elected into office, what can we do with that? It's a beautiful thing to see Black people engage and want to run and to be involved in politics. And for me, like I said, being a political science major, it's natural for me to want to know and to be informed because I understand all the different aspects of it. And but it can be daunting. Like I said, we just talked about the judicial seats. That's over 30. That doesn't include school board. That doesn't include Democratic Executive Committee people. So it's 5 pages on the ballot.
Right.
So,
Right. Nashville, we can get into a lot, but y'all know y'all don't like long episodes. So hopefully we got much out of Mr. Marcus. We're going to get into more of the venting and talk about his background, talk about his family, man, and talk about why he's doing what he's doing. Body Mass Index of Election Education with Marcus Shute Jr., Nashville. Have you heard a black man vent today?
We're going to bring on your daughter, London, so she can, talk about the money part and so how people can donate. Hey, London, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. So tell us how people can support your daddy with his campaign.
So if you would like to donate to my dad's campaign, please go to shootforjudge.com. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just like that, Nashville, just like that, man, we're back Monday morning, guys. Monday morning, man, we got my guy, Marcus Shute Jr., man, the one and only that's here with us on the Black Man Vent 2 podcast. Good morning, Nashville. Have you heard a black man vent today? Man, Nashville, if you guys have paid attention to the beginning of our episode, Mr. Marcus has given us some great detail about the criminal court judge division 6 position and how that works and how the just everything works in that. So Nashville, make sure you guys key into that, pay attention to that, man, and go out and vote.
Yes.
Again, go out and vote.
Yes.
Go out and vote. Go out and vote. Election day, May the 3rd. Let's get into the vent, man. Let's get into the rawness and the realness that we appreciate on this podcast. Marcus, the first question that I want to ask you, man, is about your family life. Your wife, man, your kids, man. What passion comes into that, and what love do you have, man? Just being able to know you can go home, man, no matter what, knowing you got 3 girls that's looking up to you.
Yeah. So I think I'm very fortunate. I have 2 daughters, and my wife.
A girl dad.
Yeah, girl dad all the way.
Yeah.
The only testosterone in the room.
It's just me and the dog. That's why I had to mention the
dog
too.
Yeah,
so
like,
when people,
my brother Manson.
John Manson.
Manson, he got the same thing. The
Yeah.
dog is the only other friend. It's like, bro, you want me to go outside with you? No, but yeah, it's good. I mean, it's funny because one of the books that I finished reading was written by Bell Hooks, and she was talking about her perspective of her dad growing up, and it kind of changed some of the ways that I am rearing my children, or the interactions that we have. I think that for me growing up, my dad talking stern to me, or because my dad rarely gave me a spanking. I think he may have did it twice when I was a little kid, but my mom did a lot more. And my parents divorced when I was 2.
Okay.
And so I was living with my mom for the most part of my life until I went to high school in Georgia to live with my dad. But by then, you're 16, 17. You ain't gonna whip me like box.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it was socially acceptable to get spankings, in the 90s and in the 80s and maybe even the early 2000s. I think as people have grown and understood, what that does to people psychologically when you're physically using violence to discipline people. And then even, in turn for me, like having daughters, looking at for me being the first male authority figure, and then the first way that I show them discipline is by physical violence. So thinking about, kind of how that plays into my daughters' lives and how I discipline them, it was challenging to find a balance to get them to understand, because I didn't know. What I knew was if I did something wrong, I'm gonna get a whooping. And that's got some power behind it. Switches and some belts, right?
My goodness, man.
You better get the right switch.
Right. And they gonna send you back for another one.
I come from that area where you gotta go get it, man. And then if you don't, like you just said, you bring back the wrong thing, oh no, then you gotta go back. You might as well keep going.
Right. So I mean, I remember, growing up, my mom had like this little circle hanger thing full of belts.
Wow.
And I mean, that's what she just wore, different belts. But like, as a child, like that's what I'm saying. Like,
you still remember it.
But again, so like you got to think about that. So then for me, like with my children, I never want, because I have 3 sisters, right? And so some of the things that my dad poured into me about how I was with my sisters, like my oldest sister had a boyfriend that was physically violent to her. So I went down to go see him. Like we were talking about earlier. Like
Yes, sir.
cousin that you called, the brother you called. Like,
hey, he need to be seen though.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. He needs to understand that there are men that care about her and that don't play about that. We don't do that.
Yes, sir.
And so, we had a nice conversation with him. And for me, it was part when I saw her, part of it was shame from her, like, she didn't want to tell us. She didn't want us to come down there to make a big scene, us being me, my dad, my brother.
Right.
And so, like, even in learning how, like, when I talk about bell hooks, she was talking about how she was afraid to say things to her dad because how he would respond.
Yeah.
And she, in her book, she gave the example of, where, like, for instance, if your daughter or someone that's a woman in your family is being raped, they keep that secret, not necessarily all out of shame, but because they're afraid of what the action, the response that may become, because they probably heard you say, oh, I'll kill them or I'll make them disappear, right? And so they internalize that and think, well, if you do that, then you're going to be taken away from me. Right. And so then you have to learn how do you have those, because for us as men, that's like what we say is that's our ultimate sacrifice, right? Like I'll sacrifice myself because I show you that I care.
Exactly.
And I'm going to have to get this thing up because I saw it on Instagram today and I sent it to my mom. And we talk about like what parents do, and it says the screenshot was like, in quotes, I would die for my child. And it says, I believe you, but would you live for them? Would you get yourself healthy? Would you eliminate distractions? Would you lead them more intentionally? You'd only have to die once, but you have to live every day. Do that. And so when you think about, the way that like I saw, I had to let me send this because like that's the thing that you talk about, like, because when we talk about like even with Christianity, the ultimate, they talk about what greater friend than he who lays down his life
for a friend,
and we don't have the power like Jesus. We can't come on back.
Now.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. There you go.
But then you think about what can you do? What's the I can choose to live for him every day. So even in kind of having those conversations, like when I talk to my daughters now, it's not the way that I saw my dad talk to my sisters,
right?
Because I see how, like, even to this day, my sisters don't have certain conversations with him; they have it with me because they know I'm gonna be the filter to go to him. I can deal with the. No, bro, you wrong. I don't care. You just like me and like me and my dad. First, we both Omegas. I love seeing y'all's bond that y'all have. My dad and I are both Libras. We both born in October.
Okay.
And so when I say all right, Libra team,
there it is.
That's why I'm trying to be on the scales of just the Libra.
There it is.
That makes sense, man.
But my dad and I used to we butt heads, and it's because I'm very passionate. He very passionate.
Right.
But again, like learning how to have certain conversations the way that people receive it.
Yes,
so that for me, when you talk about like, my daughters, my family life, my home life, is even learning how to acknowledge things that I don't know, because I'm a nerd, so I love learning. And my daughter's like, you know everything, Dad. And I'm like, no, I don't know everything. I know a lot. I was like, but I don't know everything, but it's because I'm inquisitive. Like I want to learn. Like I don't have a problem saying I don't know that. But I can learn it. I'm somebody that's easily, it's in a book. We can read it. We can figure it out. It can be figured out. But that's kind of like my whole perspective of, my family life, my daughters, my wife, even like my wife is, she works in corporate America. And I used to be a manager in corporate America. And so a lot of the things I try to do is encourage her by sharing my experiences. Obviously it's different. I'm a black man. She's a white woman. She's still a woman, and she has a certain level of privilege for being white, but then she's also has a certain disadvantage being a woman. And so we talk about, like, that's the thing that I think is so unique about our household when you have, somebody like me that's so super pro-black. And because like when I went viral, I shared this with y'all. I went viral in 2018 for being a black man lawyer with locks, right? And people start combing through my stuff and they see, oh, he got a white wife. Well, how can he be for us if he got a white wife?
Oh,
and how this and this and this.
Stereotype.
And as if that's a mutually exclusive thing.
Exactly.
Like, then you can't support, and I recognize and can understand where some people are coming from, but it's their own projections.
Right.
Because if you have a conversation with me, you know where my allies lie and where I stand.
Exactly.
And I'm very clear about that. But again, like when we're having those conversations with my wife, because I have to educate her about, civil rights from the way that I learned it, right? The one drop rule. So, I'm telling her like, hey, if this was in the 50s or the 60s, they're black. It don't matter that you white, and I'm not trying to disregard your ethnicity, where you come from, your heritage.
Right.
But that's the culture that we live in,
my
right?
goodness.
In the South,
man.
And so then, because we have 2 daughters, and so when we were at our oldest daughter, when she was younger, and we walk around, she'd notice people staring and looking at her, and even saying things like, "Oh, she's so exotic." I'm like, well, what makes her exotic? We both we both native Nashville.
I just said, what do that mean?
What does it mean? Is East Nashville more exotic than out north? Like, but again, it's because that's their way of, they don't know how to have a healthy conversation to say, I admire the way that you all look together, how your family is. Instead, it's got to be some superlative that, or trying to go touch her hair, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
But and again, like, that's the thing that we have those conversations in our family. It's sometimes it can be challenging because you got cultural differences.
Yes,
right?
yes.
But the difference is that we're committed to working on it. And I think that's what
that's good.
A lot of people like about when they see like us out, or they see us kind of hanging, like we a team, like it's team shoot.
That's what's up, man.
That's
I
what
love
it
that,
is.
man.
Yeah.
I love that, man. I love the fact that you talk about a team when you talk about marriage, and you talking about your wife and your family as a team, man. It's got to be a team. It's not gonna work, man. I used to tell them cats that all the time. I used to tell him and my other son that I said, man, I'm the quarterback, man. And when I said, do it make sense for me to call a play and then do something different, man, than what I told you the play was.
Right.
I used to tell them that all the time, man, because I'm the quarterback. You know what I'm saying?
That's the only way I understood it.
Yeah, man. And sometimes they thought that, like, why daddy doing this? Why he doing that?
Yeah.
He ain't with me. He ain't down with me. No, man, I'm down with you, dude. But I'm trying to tell you, let me do this, man, because I've been there and done that. You know what I'm saying?
I got the little wisdom. I got the
man.
experience.
I'm trying to share that with him, man. But and he's gonna get it, man, because he's getting ready to start a family, whatever, man. So it's one of them generational things, man, that you hope you pass down the good stuff, man, and not all the negative. You know what I'm saying? But I watch you, and and I saw you with your wife when you came to the weekend, man.
I did too.
And I saw how y'all interact together. And I did see one thing I did see, man, and I appreciate, not trying to down no women or nothing, but I appreciate her letting you be you, man. She didn't try to get in your way when you was doing your thing, man.
Right.
She didn't try to hold you down or whatever. She just let Marcus be Marcus, man. And you was being Marcus. I didn't really had never met you, man. But I knew that you was a dude, that you was a strong brother, man. I could tell the way you commanded the room and way you was handling yourself. I was like, and then when me and my son started mingling and dingling also, was like, man, we got to get that dude right now, man. You know what I'm saying?
Man.
So just your aura, man,
Sure
it's a positive a vibe, man. So with that being said, man, when you run across the negative vibe, man, like you said, in the house or even in the community or even in the judicial system, how do you combat that, man? How do you combat the negative, man?
So I'm a realist. I'm a very realistic person. I recognize and understand. I think that's what keeps me grounded. I've worked. I've literally had a job since I was 13 or 14 years old.
Wow.
So having like a discipline, a work ethic, seeing people struggle. I've been fortunate to not have. I lived in based on income housing by choice in undergrad because I didn't want to live on campus anymore. And but knowing people that they don't have that choice, right? I could have stayed on campus. And lived on a dorm, but just people that when their lives go to different areas, different circumstances happen. It keeps me humble. They say, what is it? Humbleness before humility comes before the fall.
Pride before
the fall, right? So I try to live with humility with dignity.
Man.
Humbleness with pride.
Yes.
So I'd rather somebody think that I'm meek and humble and walk up on me and find out it's a whole different conversation.
Yes, sir.
Whole different game.
Yes, sir.
But when you're dealing with negative energy from people, I've recognized a lot of people project a lot of things that's going on, and you happen to be the mirror of them seeing something that they may want to be, where they want to go. And when you recognize that, they haven't allowed themselves to walk in the fullness of who they are, and they see that, and it's like, oh, I don't like that you're doing it. It don't have, and so most of the time, I don't think people's issues have anything to do with me.
Right.
I'm just a conduit that reminds them, like, this is somewhere that they probably wanted to go or they want to do. And so when I sense that, I again, y'all see me, so y'all know what I look like. I've been all over Nashville,
right,
everywhere in Nashville,
right.
And I think that it's far more positive people in the world that want to be positive than it is negative. I think, when you think about people that deal with courts, most people that go to court are dealing with a negative situation. It's the worst time or the worst whatever. You're getting divorced, your business is broke down, right? You're in a marriage contract license with your partner, and y'all are gonna separate, right? That's a tough thing to deal with.
True.
So people that are dealing with crime or dealing with mental health addiction or dealing with just addiction to mental health issues or addiction, those persons are not operating or having the best time of their life either.
Yeah,
true.
And so, again, when you encounter people that are, even if they're directly negative towards me, it's hard. There are a few people that don't like me, and I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, and I'm one of those people.
Life, man.
I've never tried to be a people pleaser. I've been somebody that's like, I'm gonna be who Marcus is gonna be, and either you gonna connect and love that, or you not. And I'm okay with the not.
Yeah.
But I would hope that the not is not based on some prejudice that you have or some projection that you have on me.
So true.
Thank you.
And so, like, dealing with negativity, I just try to be a positive person, because I remember when I was working at this job, and on Mondays I was wishing it was Friday. And but the thing is like think about the language that we use, right? How do you spend your time, right? How do you spend your life, right? Those like we talk. If you put that in the transactional form, right? I was wishing for 4 days of my life to go away.
Come on,
because
man.
I didn't want to be where I was.
Yes.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you think about how am I spending my time, I'm wasting it because I'm here doing something I don't want to do, doing something. And so, that's why I say language is important, because then I started thinking about, okay, I don't wish that it was Friday. I wish that I was doing something different.
Wish I was doing something.
Let me pivot where I'm thinking and
Wow.
how I'm thinking.
Wow.
Yes.
And so, like, with negativity, I try to take that and pivot it to something positive. Like, if I'm not feeling well, I'm thinking about, well, how did I feel when I did feel well? Like, let me not focus on the negative, right? Or focus on the lack. Let's focus on what's bountiful and what's there. And I think that it's just a matter of perspective. When, I fly airplanes. I got my private pilot's license. It was a birthday gift for my wife.
Wow.
And so when you learn to fly planes, you learn about perspective. And you can have a very small airplane or a very large airplane, but when you get in a certain height, everything below looks tiny.
Right.
And so when we think about perspective, it's all about how you look at something. Like, we're opposite each other on the table, so I see something, you see something different.
Exactly.
We're in the same room though, right? It's just what our focus is on.
Yes.
And so when you start talking about negativity, you focused on that.
Come on,
let's change our perspective and figure out what do you have, what do we have that we can build on and move forward. So that's how I deal with negativity, is try to find something positive in it. Negative can't operate without positive. Science tells us that.
Yeah,
right?
it
You gotta have the neutron and the proton, and the electron. So
yeah.
Man, Nashville, have you heard of Black Man Vent Today? We got again my guy Marcus Shute Jr., man, criminal court judge, Division 6. Make sure y'all go vote. Marcus, man, I got a question, and it's kind of getting into more of that venting process, and just kind of, just learning about you, man, learning about your background. I love how you don't call your hairstyle dreads. You call them locks. Tell us about your lock journey. When did you start it, man? What was the background behind it? And in that nature, man, how did you get going with your lock journey?
So I started my lock journey, and I use the word lock, for a few reasons. One, you think about strength from a lock itself. A connection. Security. Not LOC, but if you think about lock, LOCK.
Right.
And then thinking about, again, when we talk about language, so I was influenced in high school by one of my good friends by the name of Haram Reed. He was a Rastafarian. And his whole family they were from Jamaica. They lived in Decatur, Georgia. Spent a lot of time with them. We played soccer together. So I learned about just language that he would say ital foods, which are foods that come from the ground, that are not processed, that are not from the vine, because Rastafarians believe that they're Nazarites. So the Nazarites don't take from the vine, they don't cut their beard, they don't cut their hair. Very pure about the food that they eat. So that's where the word ital comes from. I for when you're talking about their religious experience. And so he and I were talking, and he gave me a book to read. And so the book was just talking about Rastafarian, a way of life. And it's not an ism, because it's not a temporary thing. It's the way that they choose to live and operate every day, and how. And they use, and I learned about language. And so they wouldn't say things like goodbye, because bye would be a negative word, or I understand, because you're under something, we should be exalted. So they would say I overstand. Or when they say I see you later, later is negative. So they say, well, come forward soon, because they want you to come into, so like when you start learning about, language, I kind of forgot the question now. I started talking about my hair. And so, so when I started reading about that book, and it just really drew me in, and we started talking about like the foods that he ate. He wouldn't eat certain foods that was processed, and then we started talking about the hair, and we started talking about when men were brought over from Africa, when they went through the passageway of the door never returned. We talk about like Wall Street. In the stock market, that's where they brought black bodies, and the way that they would auction them off is by cutting off all their hair and then lathering them up with oil, so they would be shiny, like and more appealing to purchase. And so when you think about unfortunately American history wants to limit people of African descent to slavery, then you don't have an identity, you don't have a religion, you don't have food, you don't have language, you don't have culture. And so for me, it was a way to connect with my people and my culture. And so when you see my hair, you immediately are going to identify me.
Most definitely.
Like I'm not somebody that you're going to look and say, oh, he's conforming, or he's kind of went in with that. So the last time I got a haircut, I was a junior in high school.
Wow.
And I grew my hair out since then. I had a teacher at TSU, a black man, another black attorney, tell me that I wouldn't be an attorney with my hair like that. He wasn't the only one. So I mean, it's just okay. I appreciate you. And so it was just important for me. And so back into the language thing, right? So dreadlocks, the word dreadful is a negative connotation. Rastas would never use that language because it's negative. But that's what was given by the others, or the majority, whoever decided. They said they want to call it dreadlocks. There's nothing dreadful about me when I come to you, right? There's nothing dreadful about my hair, it's just different. And, I was always taught difference does not denote deficiency, and so that's part of my journey. Growing my hair out, it's I felt very connected to my hair. I've had different companies not want to hire me or promote me because I don't fit the company culture. Which is why I started my own law firm. Because I think it's important for young black men, especially when they grow their hair out, they can be, professional with their hair. You can wear a suit, you can wear J's, you can do whatever. It's just another something that I think brings the authenticity of who the person is. Like we were talking earlier about me not smile. Like I was talking about y'all about smiling and not smiling. I can remember growing up very distinctly as a kid, certain white, like strong characters like Clint Eastwood, right? He can frown all day. He's so sexy. He's so this. Black man frown.
He
so
mad. He angry.
I got the same face that he, But so and then you learn as a child, how do you disarm people? Big smile. Right. Then you feel like, well, am I cooning? Like, like, is this being like, am I being a minstrel? Because but then you're trying to figure out like, how do I operate and be in spaces? And then you start, dealing with like imposter syndrome, or like, do I belong in this space? And so it's just like, that's the thing for me with my hair. It always gave me that solid foundation to know this is me, regardless if I smile too much or if I don't smile. Cause sometimes I'm not in the mood to smile. Like,
right.
Like I think Malcolm X had a quote that says, "I'll laugh when I see something funny." But it's just getting informed by a lot of those. Like my parents were very big on education, so like I learned Swahili, a long time, like because elimu is how you say education in Swahili. And my dad used to write me cards, and that's one thing I say about my parents. Even though they were divorced, like I had a great relationship with both of them. They never talked about the other one, or like they didn't do that.
That's great.
But he would write me. He would write, "Elimu is the key," which is education is the key. And so he always taught me to ask the questions, to dig and to find. And so like I can remember in the 5th grade reading books called They Came Before Columbus and Before the Mayflower.
Yes, sir.
Because we can have a conversation
Yes,
about
sir.
how there was black trade between
Oh,
the
my
native people
goodness.
here and African people before Columbus even came
Yo,
over
come
and got
on,
lost.
talk, man.
Right. So
Talk,
in the 5th
man.
grade, I'm having
Talk,
this knowledge
man.
and talking to these teachers, and
Talk,
they're like,
man. Yeah.
How you
They-
know this?
They,
Like,
and
yeah,
they
oh,
wouldn't
yeah.
like it. They wouldn't like it.
No,
really.
because it don't fit inside the book that they got.
Man.
Come on.
They
That's
only
right.
talk about
Come
us on law. We're bigger than slaves and
Yeah,
all that.
man.
We don't want to
Yes.
talk about how you stole all the African knowledge and you named that
Talk about it.
Pythagorean that they
Talk
never been
about
to
it.
the
You
pyramids.
down my lane now,
know.
brother.
So yeah, that's another
Yeah,
thing.
oh,
I
man.
told you I taught high
Yeah,
school now.
yeah,
So
I'm
that's
all
what we
about
talked
that,
about.
man.
Nah,
I'm
that's
all
what we.
about. I've been
Yeah.
trying to share it with my son. I said, man, you got to dig deeper than what they're giving you, man.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah.
dig deeper, man. And once you start digging
Look.
deeper, it'll give you more of appreciation for your color, man.
Look, I tell when I used to teach high school, I
Mhm.
had a sign it's like an Instagram meme, but I had a sign on my wall that said a child educated only at school is an uneducated child.
Wow, good one.
Man.
And it has
Man.
nothing,
Good
and
one,
it's
man.
not, disrespecting any
Man.
public school system. What it
Right.
is that the school is only equipping you for whatever their standards are so you can get your diploma.
Right.
They're not equipping you for your culture. They're not equipping you for your community. They're not
Mhm.
equipping you for any of those things.
Right.
And so you
Yeah.
have to have somebody that says, hey, you can find out more about yourself. I'll
Yes.
show you some books.
Most
Yes.
definitely.
So,
Most definitely.
Yes.
Most definitely, man. Man, Nashville again,
Ooh.
man. We want to thank you guys for joining
Ooh.
us, man.
Yes.
This episode has been great. We could talk to my guy
man.
Marcus all day long.
Yeah,
Y'all
yeah.
should have heard the episode off the air.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I wish we had recorded that one, man. Yeah.
But man, Marcus, I want to take some time, man. Again, man, congratulations to you for what you're doing in the campaign, man. Keep pushing it again. May the 3rd is getting close, so make sure Nashville, y'all go vote. Marcus, take this time, man, if you don't mind, to put all of your social media plugs out there. And also, while we got a good 5-minute segue left, give some of those resources that you mentioned about earlier in the beginning part of the episode when you talked about just different resources that you can need and may need when you're in a certain situation where they may have to see you at some point.
Okay, so you can find all the information for my campaign at www.shuteforjudge.com. That's SHUTE for judge.com. And then also on social media, Instagram and Facebook is just Shute for Judge. My Twitter is MShute Jr. I don't really tweet that much. I just go on there to be nosy and read and learn. But my law page is Shute Law. So that's my law firm, shutelaw.com, Shute Law on all social medias. And what were the resources you were asking
You
about?
mentioned in the first segue that, you know, a lot of people don't know various resources that you may have when you're in a certain situation where they may need to see you in a courtroom. So essentially, I think you gave just some different information behind that.
So like the
that
school
may-
you was talking about where the
Yeah.
guys can be like the
So Pivot School,
yeah,
Pivot
stuff like
Technology.
that.
So
Yeah,
Pivot
yeah.
Technology, and I don't know if they have a program for specifically criminal justice, but they absolutely have scholarships available.
Yeah.
I mean, it's owned by 2 Black men here in Nashville that are passionate about closing the wealth gap, and I think that that's one way that we can close it is through coding.
Yes.
Technology is the way that's going to help us kind of level the playing field.
Yes, sir.
So Pivot Technology School is one. I mentioned Music City Community Careers Program. That is, I believe it's off of Sitco Drive. They have the opportunity where you can get trainings for vocational skills, whether it's pipe fitting, plumbing, electricity, HVAC. Doesn't cost anything, free.
Right.
Hear me when I say free.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
if it's somebody that's looking for, a new skill, new job, those jobs can pay 6 figures once you get good contracts and you know what you're doing.
Yes,
sir.
So it's something that I think that again, you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know about none of that stuff when I was in school. They only told me go to college, get a degree, and go do
And that's
work.
That's
That's
it.
But there are so many different opportunities out there, and I think that we just have to have somebody that tries to help present it and ask those questions. So that's what I'm trying to do is ask the questions, get the information out there to the community so people can know how to make their choices going forward. So,
Yes, sir.
I love it, man.
Yes, sir.
I love it.
Hey, I think this has been a great episode. We thank Brother Marcus, man, and we appreciate your knowledge, man. Nashville, you don't even know he even gave us some tidbits on recording our podcast. So the brother's just a wealth of knowledge. But it was just a pleasure to have you on, man. And and you got a great smile, brother. So
Thank
just
you.
keep doing it, man.
That's
Yeah,
it.
just keep doing it, man.
That's
So if what they said when we get ready to leave church, if all hearts and minds are clear,
Yeah.
Nashville, until next week, we'll see you, and it's a wrap. black man, don't get trapped.
It is what it is. It ain't what it ain't. You can do what you can, and you can't with what you can't. This has been another episode of the Black Man Vent 2 podcast. Good morning.